Welcome everyone to the very first webinar in our 5-part series for Tech Buyer Thursdays. We are so excited to have you here today to delve into a key trend from our most recent research. We want these to be short and impactful sessions to kickstart your Thursdays, feeling inspired to make your money work harder for you on LinkedIn. So prepare for a 15 minutes max presentation from me and get your questions ready in the chat box for 15 minutes of Q&A after. Before you do that, we would love to hear who we have with us today. So say hi in the chat box and let us know where you're dialing in from. My name is Tamsin Lawrence and I am based in London and I am a client solutions manager at LinkedIn. And the first question I always get is, Tamsin, what is a client solutions manager? So I work with enterprise tech clients to be your day-to-day trusted advisor and consultant for all of your brand to demand advertising needs on platform. So it's a real pleasure to be here with you today, delving into this research that I know I will also be taking away with me as well to drive successful campaigns for my clients on LinkedIn. So to give you a bit of background, if you're not familiar, each year LinkedIn conducts one of EMEA's largest surveys on B2B technology purchasing and decision making, bringing with it new trends and insights for our technology marketers in EMEA. We're now entering our 7th year fielding this research, and we anticipated some significant change, and we were definitely proved right. So to look at the numbers before we kick off, 39% of our total survey respondents were from EMEA, and this is where the cut focuses on today. So all of the data you will be seeing is from EMEA. The respondent base was equally weighted between small biz, medium size, and enterprise companies. The survey was fielded between July and August 2020, and the respondent base was all either, bear with me, had all either researched, evaluated, bought, implemented, or renewed hardware or software for end users or hardware or software for data centers within the past 6 months. The respondents came from a wide variety of functions, and that's a key point we're going to touch upon later today. So welcome to the very first trend from our research, saying hello to the IT facilitator. As business operations are becoming increasingly digital, IT is moving away from a top-down decision maker function to a key business partner that facilitates technology purchases. This is one trend I've been very excited to showcase to you here today. As an overall concept of engaging a wider buying committee and the complexity of those buying decisions will not be new to you, but these results will be. And I believe it will begin to shift the way you think about targeting on LinkedIn forever. So if you're familiar with this research, you know that we have continued to reinforce the reality and importance of the expanding buying committee, because we continue to find that technology buyers and influencers are more than just IT specialists. We likely experience this ourselves, having taken part in surveys and shared input on various software and tools that our teams are utilizing today, especially more so in the virtual world. Did you have a choice of which laptop you would like when you first joined your company? In this new virtual world, were you given a choice of which video conferencing software you'd like to utilize? These are small examples just of us in sales, marketing, and many other revenue generating functions being given huge influence on tech decisions happening in our company based on our needs and preferences and what works best for us. Whilst the story of the expanding buying committee is not new, we're still showcasing a real heavy reliance on the IT function in our targeting on LinkedIn. We'll explain in more detail why they are still playing a key role, but opening up your messaging and your content to wider functions not only allows you to engage all functions that now have a seat at the IT decision-making table, but also wider buying audiences tend to be more cost-effective on LinkedIn, therefore making your money work harder while scaling with relevance. What is not to like? So instead of being limited to technicians, digital competence and innovative thinking are becoming core parts of every role, no matter which business function that role sits within. As a result, employees across functions are looking for user-friendly technology solutions to help them do their jobs better and innovate more effectively. In today's landscape, there are now a vast array of stakeholders who play a key part in an average B2B technology decision. As you can see from this chart on the right, when asked, which functional department are you part of? One of the most interesting things we saw this year was a concentration of revenue generating functions taking part in our survey. This means that there are customer facing voices with a seat at the table who are driving the discussion around technology enabled tools over time. What I want to draw your attention to the most is that for the first time ever, we see the role of IT fundamentally changing. This is the year IT has dropped well below other functions as a lead decision maker in tech purchases. Let us just think about that for a moment. This is the first year ever the function of IT has dropped well below other functions in our research as lead decision maker in tech purchases. As you can see here, marketing, business development, sales, and finance are now driving the tech agenda and the demand for new tech. As we mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, our aim from talking to you today is about your money working harder on LinkedIn, and engaging the wider buying functions in your marketing is a great start. One worry when including functions such as business development and sales is that your audience sizes increase, as they tend to be larger audiences than IT. This isn't something to be put off by when we're scaling with relevance based on key trends. But if you are worried about wastage, purchasing on a website click objective, for example, will mean you're only charged when someone clicks the link to your website. But you're ensuring you're reaching every potential person at the decision-making table, or in our landscape, the decision-making Zoom call, and that is what is key. Is anyone thinking they need to run back now and adapt the majority of their targeting on LinkedIn? I am with you, and I've had the same thoughts. For a long time now, we've been utilizing the IT function as the be-all and end-all of our core audience. But you're leaving here today knowing now, if you want to be successful in your tech campaigns, we need to start taking other functions that we may not have before more seriously. We can also see that it's not just diversity in committee composition, but it's diversity in touch points within the organization and within the customer themselves. As you can see from the chart on the right, when we asked individuals, who do you collaborate with when going through the process of purchasing a new tech solution? IT is still the hub in this model, but there are other gatekeepers who exist: finance, procurement, business development. 7% even mentioned there was actually no leader in this journey. Let's think about that. 7% of respondents, so 160 EMEA tech buyers, decided there was no leader in this activity. Think about the complexity and the amount of people coming to the table with their own thoughts, opinions, and research without a leader. The IT function may be looking at an all-out view of technology, but ultimately there are all these differing functions trying to navigate one another and collaborate on a path moving forward. But what this has led to is a really interesting dynamic that there is now split influence as it relates to tech decisions. So don't worry, I'm definitely not here to tell you that IT function no longer has a place in your targeting, your marketing, or your messaging. As a function, they're still hugely influential. As you can see from the chart on the right, when asked which function has the most influence, 39% agreed the IT function has the most influence. But this is a huge drop from when we first ran this survey in 2014, when 75% agreed the IT function had the most influence. This shows you just how much companies have adapted over the last 6 years and more so in the age of agility. 56% of influential business functions now sit outside of IT. Take a look at finance and procurement at 16%, sales showcasing 13% in influence in tech purchasing decisions. These decisions are hard, they are complex, and they are very distributed. So it's our perspective that IT is involved, what will be the guide within the business for teams to collaborate moving forward. From a marketing perspective, our potential customers and key decision makers look more different now than they have ever before. And we should be asking ourselves, how can we make it easier for them to navigate their research? How can we make sure we're top consideration for the majority of functions coming to that table? What nuanced messaging are they looking to hear from us to make their working lives easier? Is it more efficiencies? Are they looking for money saving? Some of these questions we're actually answering in our other Thursday sessions. With more individuals than ever involved in buying technology, technology providers must gain the attention of a wide range of buyers, all with their own unique needs on channels where they prefer to interact. Once they've made a connection, technology providers need to demonstrate how their offering can help these individuals and their teams perform at their peak. And they won't be able to do this using specialist language that only IT professionals can understand. And with B2B sales already employing a less centralized or multi-threading approach, marketing should also be connecting with a broad range of decision makers at multiple touch points. It's also important to remember in your messaging, these facilitators have completely different mindset to the specialists when approaching these purchases. They care more about price, integration, and adoption. So I just wanted to touch upon a brand that we think is doing this really well, and that is ServiceNow. ServiceNow's recent brand campaign, The Better Way to Workflow, sparks joy with audiences outside the IT department. While IT is responsible for digital transformation, it is definitely an emotion that is felt across the business by all departments. They have done a really great job in relating to non-IT functions and specifically the C-suite, but keeping their messaging fun and authentic. Using humor, emotion, and repeated use of characters, ServiceNow understands that their next buyer could be anywhere. They touch upon those little moments of joy, like when your IT ticketing system works super well, and we've all been there and we've all felt that joy. I've watched all their videos and I recommend that you do too. Their CMO, Alan Marks, comes from a consumer background, and he really stresses the importance of building a memorable brand as a challenger in the space. He thinks people need to know what you stand for at dinner parties. So piecing together emotion in B2B is a real strong suit of theirs. I really hope this has sparked some interesting thoughts and feelings regarding your own targeting on LinkedIn. The other 4 trends we have coming up intertwine perfectly with each other. Next up, we have Nora presenting established or challenger brand. Buyers want both. This touches upon increasingly competitive environments and how you can help buyers in EMEA justify technology spending by demonstrating your full competencies. We'll then have Bob taking us through the end user being your extended brand and the importance of social proofing generated by your peers. Nora will then also be taking us through the post-sales gap being up for grabs, showcasing the importance of using post-sales support in your positioning to buyers in EMEA, and the importance of making an ongoing effort to understand your existing customers. And of course, it wouldn't be a LinkedIn research piece if we didn't go out with a bang, and Ben will be talking to us about why the anonymous buyer is here to stay. So there are so many great nuggets of knowledge coming to you in the next few weeks. So I hope you'll join us on this journey. So thank you for your time listening through, and we will go into our Q&A, and I have a special guest joining me on screen too. Hello, Ben.
Hey Tamsin,
You are
very,
my
very interesting.
special guest. Welcome.
Happy to be here. Yeah, anticlimax, it's just me.
And do you want to introduce yourself, Ben?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name's Ben Whedon. I've been at LinkedIn for about 6 years now, a variety of different roles. I'm currently a key account director where I work with some of our biggest technology brands and lovely marketers every day. So happy to join you today.
Excellent. And I think you have been keeping an eye on the Q&A function for us. Ben is also super familiar with the Age of Agility research, so it's great to have him here today as we sort of work through. I've noticed a couple of questions coming through.
Yeah, some very interesting questions. So yeah, let's get a start and get through some of these and hopefully get some interesting questions raised. We've got a first one here saying, should we be focused on more generic messaging and content to take into account all of the functions you mentioned, Tamsin? We are currently focusing on just calling out job titles in our messaging.
I love this question. I think this is a great question actually, because it's so awesome to hear that you have been calling out other titles and functions in your messaging, because we see that perform exceptionally well on platform. What I would say is it's definitely not an A or B situation. It's more an A and B situation. So we can be more inclusive of multiple functions in one campaign, but it's not stopping us running a separate campaign with messaging to a specific function in conjunction, if that is something that you have seen working really well in the past. We also don't need to be spending money on new creative, say, per audience, or to take into account more functions. If you think sort of creative might be an issue, we can just be leveraging varying intros in the headline text dependent on the audiences that you're targeting, and you can see what works best. So I think the whole idea here is just to be more inclusive of functions in your campaigns to lead to success where we can.
Thanks, Tamsin.
Fab. Well, I've been talking a lot, Ben. I'm going to ask you a question. I've seen another good one come through that I've heard you talk about previously in the past. So another one from us is, so Ben, are we saying junior salespeople in business development are more influential than IT decision makers?
Okay,
That was
yeah,
kind of referring to that chart, wasn't it, where sort of business development was in front of
yeah.
IT.
That's a very good question. I'm actually really glad you brought this up because it raises a really important point when it comes to your targeting on LinkedIn. There is a difference on our platform between those we classify under the sales function umbrella and those that we classify under the business development function. In many companies, specifically tech actually, business development is going to encompass roles tasked with sales prospecting, as an example. And in some of those companies, it can actually be the less senior role. So obviously we're showing it as an influential function. Of course, I understand where this question is coming from. But business development as a function within LinkedIn is essentially those we classify who are tasked with business growth, such as business strategists, strategic partnership leads, and even actually all of our executive director roles. So your CEOs, chief execs, your vice president titles, managing director titles. Actual fact, 70% of all C-level job titles fall within the business development function. So that's a really good reminder to check our classifications with your LinkedIn reps to confirm you're actually targeting the right people and not letting anyone of interest, anyone that values you, slip through your fingers. And actually, one important point is you can even go into our campaign manager tool yourselves. And if you select your most desirable job titles that your salespeople have said, these are the people that we need to talk to. If you enter those in your targeting, you'll see down the right rail of the campaign manager tool what job functions they actually fall under, and that will give you clues about where you can potentially expand to capture the parts of the buying committee that are most of interest to you.
I love that, Ben. And actually, Mike just sort of popped up with another question as you were talking through that, saying, is it worth targeting the C-suite or not? And I think you kind of mentioned that in terms of like 70% of our sort of C-suite targeting actually sits in that kind of business development function. But yeah, that was another question for Mike. Is it worth targeting the C-suite?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely worth targeting them. Just think about the types of content and the expectation of the time you're asking them to spend. So for example, we sometimes see assets asking for workshop signups or even webinar signups. And really, does a C-suite have the time? They're the most time poor people around. Will they have the time to attend? But if we do at least make them aware with some thought leadership or some great case studies of the great work you do with other clients, we can target them, make them aware of your value. When it comes to those who report into them, actually saying, look, here's our shortlist, here's the people. If you have a base level of awareness, obviously you're just stacking the odds in your favor that you might rise to the top of that shortlist.
Excellent. Thank you, Ben. What else have we got? Any other questions?
Yeah, we have one here. And this is a very interesting question, actually. If IT has the most influence according to your charts, why don't we just focus on them?
Great question. Maybe I'll kick off and then Ben, you can feed in after. I think this is a great question because we can, of course, focus on IT as our hub, but we don't want to ignore the other potential gatekeepers if you have capacity to focus on them. So we want to make sure that out of, I think on average, the 16 people that are coming to the table with their 10 pieces of research each and their own opinions, we want your brand to be top of their mind. So I think it's important for us to listen to what our audience is telling us. So this research is definitely showing us that there are many other gatekeepers who we may not have considered before that we should be. So let's run a campaign on website objectives. Let's only pay for people who are engaged and want to learn more. And let's learn who those people are, what functions they're coming from, focus on what that data is telling us. And you might be surprised, be sort of casting the net out, but doing it very cleverly, and you might be surprised at what comes back, because it will be different for each company, won't it? It will sort of, it will be different in terms of all the functions that are engaging with you, but learn and throw the net out there, do it in a clever way, and then take those learnings back with you.
Yeah, I think you're completely right, and I really do agree with the sentiment behind the question to a certain extent, because we understand that you have lead targets and you're going to have to justify your spend on who you deem the highest quality leads. But what our research is telling us is that if we also reach a wider buying committee, we can not only influence some potential performance volume for the buyers of today, but we're going to help influence the buyers of tomorrow by influencing the people that influence our ultimate buyers. Influence being the key word there. I mentioned it about 5 times. Start thinking about marketing, right, in terms of who are we influencing that's ultimately going to reach that decision maker. And we're going to be on to a winner.
Love that. Brilliant. Thank you, Ben. And I'll have one more for you. I've got another one because we're coming up with 3 minutes left. So I've got one more to answer. If anyone else doesn't have any other questions, ping them in Q&A if you do. But Ben, as I think the chart it's referring to here is that we saw such a huge decline in from IT from like 75% to 39% in sort of the first sort of chart that I show. So are we expecting IT to continue to decline in terms of their influence and leading the way? Are we expecting that decline to continue?
I mean, I would love to be able to see into the future and understand that. I think what this really tells us is that, and it kind of coins the phrase of age of agility, is that we have to be agile in our thinking and realize that things are changing, and are we set up in a way that we can align with a changing marketplace? We're not saying by any means IT are not influential. They are the most influential there, but there are other gatekeepers. So we don't want to miss out on those people who have more influence than we might imagine. So it's just kind of expanding our thinking to think, okay, are we certain that we are covering all of the bases? It's a journey, it's really, really complex. It's really diverse. It's not just one function we should be reaching. So really, if you have the opportunity, then explore who part of the buying committee that you really should be going after.
I love that. And I love that, Ben. I don't think that there is another sort of question has popped up, but I think what a way to end on, actually, that point that it's a journey, it's complex and it's very diverse. But hopefully what you're all sat here today taking away is that it's not just about one function. And there are clever and interesting ways to do it on LinkedIn, and let's listen to what our members are saying and take that data and run that with your campaigns moving forward. But I think that's it. 1 minute, give you 1 minute back. But thank you, Ben, for joining me on Q&A. And thank you so much, everyone that has joined. We hope you found these short, impactful sessions really helpful. And we hope that you will join us on our next Tech Buyer Thursday next week when Nora is presenting.